I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. There we go. Sitting down with a passion fruit Whiteclaw, which is the worst thing. Oh, son of a... Go on, take a seat, you little idiot. I was just commenting on how the passion fruit Whiteclaw is probably the worst thing I've ever tasted. I planned on just sitting here staring at this wall, but then you showed up, so... welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, we're going to read The Little Wooden Doll by Margery Williams. What a little about the author? I couldn't say that. That didn't come out of my mouth. I'm going to try again. Want to learn a little bit about the author? Sure, I stole this from Wikipedia. Margery Williams, born the 22nd of July, 1881, died the 4th of September, 1944. She was an English-American author, primarily of popular children's books. A professional writer since the age of 19, she achieved the lasting fame at 41 with the 1922 publication of the classic that is her best-known work, The Velveteen Rabbit. She received the Newbery Honor for Winterbound. Want to hear some fun facts that I stole from Wikipedia and LitHub and just kind of smushed them all together? It's not so much about the author, but the author's daughter, Pamela Bianco. I thought we'd focus on her daughter because she made a name for herself illustrating pretty much all of Margery's books. Pamela Bianco did the illustrations for this book, and she's considered a child prodigy in art and poetry. Her paintings and drawings were first exhibited as part of a children's show in Turin, and in London in 1919, and then in New York City in 1921. After shows in several American cities, she returned to New York City for a more mature show when she was 17 years old at the Knoedler Gallery. In her adult career, she wrote and illustrated children's literature and continued to exhibit her art. Books written and illustrated by Bianco include The Starlit Journey, a story in 1933, Playtime in Cherry Street in 1948. Books illustrated by Bianco include Oscar Wilde's The Birthday of the Infanta in 1930, Glenway Westcott's Natives of the Rock in 1925, and Hazeltine and Smith's The Easter Book of Legends and Stories in 1947. She also illustrated several books by her mother, including the grossest title I've ever seen, The Skin Horse, The Adventures of Andy, and The Little Wooden Doll. The first published version of The Velveteen Rabbit in 1921 showcased her daughter's illustrations for the story. Margery, the mom, always wanted to support her artistic development, but was conflicted in how she felt that Pamela had lost her childhood too soon. Pamela was married twice, divorced once, and then her second husband died in 1976. They had one son, Larry, who was a professional dancer, who died in 1994, with Pamela dying soon after. Oh my God, do we still have time? The grandfather clock's supposed to go off, tell me to shut up. There we go. All right, well, with that, why don't we head down to the library where we can read this book. Well, there you go. Why don't you take a little seat? Just sit there in the chair and shut up as I read to you the first chapter of this book, In the Attic. The, in all caps, little wooden doll had lived so long in the attic that no one even knew she was there. Oh, such a number of things get stored away in the attic. Broken furniture, disused trunks, tattered books, old preserve jars. That have lobster tops, and china that doesn't match. All the things that nobody wants to put up there, and there they stay among the mice and the cobwebs and are forgotten. This attic was like any other. Insomuch, that's actually a word. Is that really a word? I'm going to take a second here to look this up on the Kindle. It's just one big run-on word. Insomuch, to the extent that, insofar as. I didn't know that was one solid word. Wow. As no one living in the house below really knew what was in it. The little wooden doll lay in a corner between the old pile of school books, thick with dust, and a broken birdcage. And she must have lain there a long time, indeed. For she was not at all like the dolls that one may see nowadays. Oh, all about her, the spiders spun their webs, and the little mice scampered to and fro over the attic floor, and there was a pleasant smell of dusty and dry rot. The little wooden doll was seldom lonely, for there was always someone to talk to. The mice, in particular, were great gossips, and they knew all that went on in the house, for they ran everywhere, and they knew where the nuts were stored. Oh, and how many cakes the cook baked, and why the last lot of preserves went wrong. Oh, they knew, too, just where the store closet key was, that the housewife had been hunting for it high and low. In the last 3 weeks, I bet those little guys hid it. That's fun. For they had seen her put it there. Okay. Well, nothing happened that the mice did not know about. They were natural busybodies, and in all their news they brought to the little doll. The spiders, too, were good company, but they were inclined to be narrow-minded and dwelt too much on their own affairs. The old spider, who had his web just over the doll's head, was a philosopher. Oh, he had poked into all the old books that lay on the attic floor, and for what he was considered eccentric, when he chose to talk, he could be most interesting. But for the most part, he was silent. He disliked chatter. He'd shake with rage when the young spiders annoyed him. There was a rumor that he had been disappointed in love, but no one really knew the rights of it. On summer days, when the sun shone, a beam of light came through the attic window. Golden dust motes danced in the beam, and it was beautiful to see. Sometimes, then, a bumblebee would blunder in, or a great spotted butterfly, or sometimes a swallow would perch at the open window, and all of these had news to bring of the outside world, of the cornfields, and the flowers, and the blue sky. Sometimes at night, when the moonlight lay on the attic floor, the mice would give parties, and to these the little wooden doll was always invited. Those were gay evenings. All the baby mice were allowed to sit up late, and the crickets brought their fiddles to play the dance of music, and even the old fat spider up in the corner would stretch his legs and nod and become quite cheerful. Part 2. Someday, on, in all caps, the little wooden doll had a pleasant life. Oh, only sometimes towards dusk when the mice were busied on their own affairs, when the spiders dozed in their hammocks, and only the little gray moths fluttered to and fro, a feeling of sadness came over her. For the dolls are made for children, and deep in every doll's heart there's a longing to be loved by a child. At times, when the rain beat on the shingles, and a smell of wet earth came up through the attic window, something stirred in the little doll's memory. She recalled dimly a time when someone had really loved her, someone who had carried her about and put her to bed at night, and on those rainy days like these, played house with her on the nursery floor. Oh, it was so long ago that the little wooden doll could not remember very clearly, but she knew that these things had once happened, and she thought that if only some little child would come to the attic and play with her, she'd be quite happy. But there were no children in the house. However eagerly the little doll listened, no one ever came up the attic stairs. Still, she never quite lost hope. Sitting there in her corner, while the mice played about her, she would think, someday, perhaps, a little girl will come up here and find me. How pleased she will be. And she made up a little story of herself and all the things that she could do and the games that she would play. Playing house would be the nicest of all, for every doll loves playing house. She had forgotten what her own name used to be. It was so long ago. But she hoped that the little girl who found her might call her Rose. For that seemed to her the loveliest name in the world. And when she told the mice stories of winter evenings, that was the name she would always give to the heroine. Well, this is a really short book. Why don't we take a little break, huh? Oh, we've already learned the dreams and the hopes of a doll in the attic, who's already named herself, weirdly. I'd like to rename myself. You think I like being called Glenn? I would like to be Philip Stanza. This is the name I always wish I could have had, but I never got that. I talked to my parents about it. They won't give it to me. So why don't we go down to the basement where I'm going to play a guitar for you, and we can learn about the latest books from Random House. Now there you are. You made it. Come on down and take a seat here on this folding chair underneath this one naked light bulb, as I stand over here underneath this naked light bulb and play my guitar for you. Sounds pretty nice. And let me tell you about another Penguin Random House book called Riot Act by Sarah Lariviere. It's a teen young adult fiction. You get it for hardcover. You want to learn about it? Sure. Punk rock meets Orwell's 1984 in this story of a group of theater kids who take on a political regime. Oh my God, of course they'd think that. Perfect for readers who love books by A.S. King and Mary Lou. In an alternate 1991, the authoritarian U.S. government keeps tabs on everyone and everything. It censors which books can be read, what music can be listened to, and which plays can be performed. And when her best friend is killed by authorities and her theater teacher disappears without a trace, Gigi decides to organize her fellow Champaign High School thespians to put on a production of Henry VI. But what cost? Seriously, the author is probably a theater kid. It's just like, theater is the most important thing in the world. Governments want to suppress theater. It's the only thing that's going to be able to save society. Well, that's The Riot Act by Sarah Lariviere. You can get it for hardcover for $19.99 from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's Target, and I like to imagine some young middle school theater kid who just thinks to themselves, I am literally the most important person that exists in society. And I wish I could find something that speaks to me here in the hallowed aisles of Walmart. And boy, are they going to find it. Well, with that, why don't I go back upstairs and finish this incredibly short book? There you are. Hey, you look all weird, like you don't enjoy the basement. But we know you do. I work really hard to make the basement look cool. It's got a television and a couch and a coffee table and that folding chair you sit in. Stop acting like you hate it. Part 3. When the Children Came. One, in all caps, day, the mice came to her in great excitement. Some children were coming to the house to stay. They heard all about it from behind the sitting room wainscot. The old nursery was being prepared. Fresh curtains had been hung at the windows, and the housewife had baked apple pie and a whole lot of ginger cookies. Burp, the mice could smell them in the oven. Now the little wooden doll was filled with joy. At last, she said, someone is coming to play with me. She did her best to rub off the dust and had settled down in all these years, for she wanted to look nice and tidy when the children came. Most of it she could manage herself, but there were some she couldn't quite reach, and she asked the mice to help her, and they gladly brushed it off with their paws. And the mice were nearly as excited as she was, for they had never seen any real children. They only knew what they were like from the stories the little wooden doll had told them. Every few minutes they came running with news. They have yellow hair, just as you said. One of them is always jumping about. They make a big noise with their mouths. And the little doll nodded her head with excitement and cried, "Yes, yes, those are surely children." Only the big spider in the corner said, "What is all the fuss about? I can't stand children. They're hateful things." The little doll knew better. All that day she waited, tied it up in her corner, and the next day, and the next. It almost seemed as if the children would never find their way to the attic. Then, one afternoon, it rained. A big shower fell, and the big drops beat the shingles. Now they will surely come, thought the little doll, for she remembered that children loved to play in the attic on wet afternoons. And presently, up the old attic stairs, she heard them coming, creak, creak. The little doll was so excited that she wanted to call out and tell them that she was there. And she sat very still in her corner and waited, while all the little mice ran to their holes and peeped out. It was a terrible moment. Perhaps they wouldn't find her at all. She heard whispers, footsteps, here and there on the attic floor, the stirring of dust. And at last they came to the corner where she was sitting. A hand was stretched out. One of the children seized her firmly, and she was held up to the light. A voice cried, "Why, look at this funny old thing, eh? It must be some sort of, doll." And the little sister exclaimed, "Oh, look at it. Fancy anyone play with that." They turned the little doll about in their hands. All the paint's rubbed off. Isn't it an ugly old thing? Ouch. The little sister cried out, "Why, it hasn't even got any clothes." And they both began to laugh. And the poor little doll felt terribly ashamed. She had never thought about her clothes. A great lump came in her throat, and she felt that she was going to burst into tears. She had been so happy, and now everything was turning out wrong. The little boy held her up between his thumb and finger. "Well, I know. Let's do," he said. "Let's have a shipwreck on the pond, and the doll can be drowned like a sailor." But the little sister said, "No, that ain't fun. I don't want to play that. Let's play something nice." "Yeah, but shipwreck is nice." "No, I don't want to," said the little sister. "And I don't want to play with that old thing anyway." And while they were still quarreling, the supper bell rang downstairs. The boy, who had been standing near the attic window, dropped the doll on the window ledge, and they both ran away. Part 4. In the violet bed. So, in all caps, there was a little doll laying. Outside, the rain had ceased, and through the open window came the good smell of wet earth and of fresh green leaves, and the twitter of birds going here and there to search for food. Down in the long green grass, the grasshoppers were turning their fiddles for the last time before laying them by for the night. The sun shone through the clouds, and the climbing rose near the window and swayed the breeze and nodded the little doll to lay there. The little doll was so unhappy that none of these beautiful things could comfort her. Was it really true that she was so old and ugly that children would never like her again? Perhaps the whole world had changed during all those years that she lived in the attic, and dolls were no longer as they used to be when she was first made. Perhaps children no longer play with dolls at all. That was a dreadful thought. And for what is there left for a doll if these children cease to love her? As all these thoughts passed in her mind, the tears began to roll down her wooden cheeks and trickle onto the window ledge. And whether the boy had thrown her down carelessly or whether she had moved, no one could say, but suddenly the doll toppled over the edge of the windowsill and fell straight down to the garden below. Now, the little mice and the spiders had heard all that passed, and they felt very bad about it, for they all loved the little wooden doll so much, and when they saw her tumble out of the window, it gave them a terrible shock, and they all ran to peer over. But there lay the little doll in the violet bed, quite unhurt, with her painted eyes staring up at the sky. "Something must be done," said the mice. "This is too dreadful." They held a consultation that evening, and while the house was still, they crept out and gathered round the little doll to comfort her. "But never mind about the children," they said. "Come back and live in the attic with us again, for we think you are beautiful." "I don't mind about being beautiful," said the little doll. If only the children would like me." "The children are horrid things," said one mouse. "They're not as all as you said. One of them threw a stick at me today on the staircase. You better stay with us." But the little doll was still troubled. "They said I had no clothes." "Perhaps I should have had clothes. Do you think if I had clothes, they would like me better?" Yeah. You don't need clothes, cried the little mice in chorus. You're as beautiful as you are. We don't have clothes. But one of the mice, who had been silent all the time, spoke up. And he had traveled, so he had known more about the world than his companions. Yeah, she's right, he said. Dolls do have clothes, and I've seen them. They have white, stick-out dresses, shiny things around their necks, and they have yellow hair. Oh dear, said the little doll, and she began to cry again, harder than ever. Well, we must get her some clothes, said the other mice. You ought to have told us before. Something will have to be done about it. Part 5. The mice hold a council. I'm not going to keep talking about how it's all caps in the beginning of every chapter. It's getting old. All whispered together. The spiders whispered too, for they were just as troubled about the doll as anyone else. Only they didn't talk so much. So while the little mice were still chattering, they scrambled very fast on their 8 legs to their cousins, the field spiders. Now it happened that the field spiders had a splendid lot of linen just laid out to bleach, for the queen's daughter was going to be married the next day, and all the meadow was spread with gossamer Tor, whatever, I'm not looking it up, her bridal clothes. The field spiders were tired, for they had just been spinning day and night to get everything ready. But when they heard about the little wooden doll, they felt so sorry for her that they set to work at once and wove her a beautiful frock with the finest gossamer that they could make. What was called a SSS, and never sold in the shops. Weird. And they brought the frock and slipped it over her shoulders, and it fitted perfectly. And when they saw that dress, the little doll left off crying at once. It resembled the most delicate lace, pure white, and it had stick-out skirts, just as a doll's frock should. Now she must have yellow hair, cried the little mice, and they fetched the softest corn silk that they could find from the barnyard stack and made 2 plaits of golden hair to hang down her back. And they woke up the flowers who were sleeping to borrow their paints, and they painted the little doll's cheeks and made her eyes forget-me-not blue, for the mouse who knew about dolls said that was the right color. It was quite exciting. And now everyone wanted to help. The moths lent some velvet off their wings to make her a cloak. And the foxglove and the lady slipper sent her gloves and shoes. Even the big rats came to look on. We know a house, the rat said, where an old man lives all alone. He's got a box full of round yellow things that shine. He hides them away so no one else shall find them. But we know where they're hidden. One of those yellow things would look nice around her neck. And they fetched one. Very round and yellow and shiny it was. And they bit a hole through it with their strong teeth and hung it on a grass chain around the little doll's neck. Now she looks splendid, they said. And indeed, the little doll looked beautiful. There had never been a doll so wonderfully dressed, and there was nothing more that could possibly be thought of, and they all stood round to admire her. But now, there can be no one more beautiful than you are, they said, and the little doll smiled on them, sitting up straight as not to crush the fine clothes that they had made for her. And in her eyes 2 tears sparkled. But they were tears of joy, because all the little friends had been so kind to her. Part 6. The child who lived in the wood. And now what shall we do with her? They asked each other. It's not fitting that she should live in the attic any longer. Well, certainly the children don't deserve to have her, said one of the mice. Listen, said a swallow who had flown down among them. In the cottage where my sister lives, at the edge of the wood, there's a little girl. She's alone all day, for her mother goes out to work. She's a kind child, for she saves crumbs for the birds. And when she gathers nuts in the autumn, she always leaves the squirrels their share. Let us take the doll to her. And then they will both be happy. So they took the little doll up very carefully and carried her down the path to the meadow and across the wood, where the fireflies flew ahead with their torches to light the way. And at last they came to a cottage. Now there's no stairs to go up, for the cottage was of 1 room only. Through the open window, and the moonlight shone in the bare floor, on a bed in the corner, the little girl lay asleep. She had only a tiny cotton shirt on, for the night was warm. Her small face was brown and freckled with the sun, and her hair lay tossed on the pillow. They sat a little doll in a chair by the bedside, and so carefully they had carried her that not one thread of her dress was spoilt. Only the yellow thing around her neck, being heavy, had slipped off from the grass chain right into the long grass it rolled, where a beggar found it the next morning. He picked it up a bit. He slipped it in his pocket. Here's luck for the whole week, he said, as he went on his way. I'd like to learn more about the beggar. That's not a story I think she's ever going to write. Goodbye, little doll, said the mice. Here you'll be happy. In the winter, when the long dark nights return, we'll come visit you. And the swallow and the spiders and the tiny moths cried, Goodbye, little doll. When the dusk falls and the stars shine out, think of us, for we will always love you. I'll never forget you, said the little doll, and she stretched out her arms. Part 7. The little mice brought her. In the morning, when the child awoke, she rubbed her eyes and stared, for there on the chair by her bedside sat a little wooden doll watching her. That's not creepy. Why, look at the fairies that brought me, she cried. Her mother set the kettle back on the hearth and came to look, and when she saw the little wooden doll, her eyes grew very wise, and she smiled and nodded. Yes, it may have been the fairies, she said, but I think myself it was the mice, for I heard they were very busy last night. Do you know how she came here? Asked the child. Do you think the little mice really brought her? Yes, I think I know how she came, said the mother. And sitting down by the bedside, she told her the story of the little wooden doll, just as I have told you. But how is it that her clothes are real? Asked the child, for the little doll's dress was of lace, but there was a brown velvet cloak on her shoulders, and real little shoes were on her feet. I've always heard the spider so well, said her mother. When one does a good action, well, there's those who see it, and that it isn't wasted. And now, she said, you will have a companion always for when I'm away at work. And what are you going to call her? For she must have a really nice name. Oh, God, here it comes. The child held the little wooden doll tight in her arms and kissed her. I shall call her Rose, she said, for that is the most beautiful name in the world. When she heard that, the little wooden doll stared straight before her with her wide eyes and smiled, and anyone could see that she was quite happy. Well, that's the end of that story. That worked out pretty well for the doll. Why don't we head down to the smoking room, where we can review what the hell we just read. Well, look, you made it. Isn't that nice? Take a seat. And you can see that baboon skull there on the coffee table. Take the cranium off, and you'll find it filled with cigarettes. Go ahead and have one. My wife's birds. Well, what have we learned in this book? Unlike the Velveteen Rabbit, which is kind of about loss and kind of changing and moving forward with loss, this one's about a little wooden doll whose life just kind of works out great. She had a kid, then she was trapped in the attic. Apparently naked. I kind of missed that part. And then, boy, she's excited to have another kid. Kids show up. They're like, you're gross, and you're naked. And they just kind of throw her on the ledge. Then she falls off the ledge because she's in despair for not being loved by children. And then after that, the animals are super nice and they help her get clothes with all their weird stuff. Like spiders, like, I can poop thread, and they make her stuff. And then they're like, I'm going to make you a necklace. But for some reason, the necklace falls off. I don't know why that was a thing. Why did they throw that beggar in there? It's kind of like that character, J.R.R. Tolkien's story. There's a Tom Bombadil. Just this weird random character thrown in that everyone talks about, but he's never written about again. So maybe this, the beggar man is like Tom Bombadil. Maybe there's a secret, she wrote a thing about him that we'll never see. Anyways, I'll move on. Point is, everything works out for the doll. The doll gets taken to a child's house, and the kid's just like, I'm going to name you Rose, the name you always wanted to be called, because I'm psychic. So, cute story. Doesn't have all the weight of loss and everything. I can see why Velveteen Rabbit was a hit, and this one's just kind of a cute story. does it run with the themes from the previous, when we read Velveteen Rabbit? Not really. It's just, if you keep your chin up, you get what you want. And the illustrations by her daughter in this book are very 1920s, 1900s, 1920s. I don't know. They're cute. Everything's cute. The book's cute. That's all I got to say about that. Not really much to reflect on. There's not any big messages here, except don't be a jerk to a mouse. Because if you're nice to a mouse, I guess they're going to help you. I have mice in my basement, and I have mouse traps to catch them. I got mouse poison outside to get them to stop being in my house. If I let mice run around in my home, they take over everything and poop on stuff and give me a disease. Will they make me a nice outfit? Probably not. Well, with that, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people. Not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, Just Stay in the Curious Mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdlinger or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.